The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Riff.
Is it really?
And we begin our show with Commander COVID and his up-to-the-date and up-to-the-minute statistics.
Okay, state count is 105,629 as of yesterday. State deaths is 8,110. Bristol County has 8,460 cases. Fall River went up 6 yesterday, so we're up to 1,643 cases and 109 deaths. So I still can't put together how Fall River is a hot spot. I'm not seeing a lot of turnover, a lot of new cases every day. If it was a hot spot, you would expect to see a lot of new cases every day. But we're so much of a hot spot that we've got 5-day-a-week testing at 4 different facilities. So I'm not sure where that hot spot's coming from.
Yeah, well, I think you and everybody, because these statistics are getting out of control. I mean, look at the statistics being bantered around about school populations. You know that now. They started saying there's virtually no transmission from young people to old people, and very little from old people to younger people, and that there were places that had children in daycare centers and they had virtually no cases. And now the people who don't want the schools open said, oh, there's a daycare center that had COVID, but we don't have numbers. And it's just they're just these statistics they sometimes, when you pay attention, try to look at them and break them down. They don't make much sense. That's the problem, I think.
Well, it's true. I mean, when you look at Florida, and I was looking at this story a little while ago from Axios. Let me see if I still have it on my screen here. And it was interesting because the person who brought it to my attention is our lovely librarian. So it's funny. Okay. From the NBC Nightly News, pointed out that if Florida were a country, it would have the world's 4th highest tally of new COVID-19 cases, a record 15,300 for the 24 hours ending yesterday. After the U.S., which has 66,281, Brazil, which has 45,048, and India, which has 28,637. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, that's what you call a hot spot. Yet at that hot spot, they opened Disney. Don't ask me why.
Yeah, and here we go again with statistics and interpretations of statistics, because if you're looking at India, should they really be considered a hot spot? When you look at, their number places them second or third. But if you make that a ratio to the population, are they really that high? I'm sure there are many smaller countries whose ratio is far higher. So I don't, it all depends. That's the problem. The problem is the old adage, figures don't lie, but liars can figure. It's all how you look at the figures. If you want to make it look big, you do it one way. If you want to make it look small, you can make it look the other way. If I wanted to make India look smaller, I would begin to rate these countries on what percentage of their population is tested and has been tested. And you basically can manipulate these numbers. It's just way too much data. And that data is necessary, but necessary for the medical community, not to totally confuse the general public, which it's being used for now.
I agree. I agree. You know, and we talk about that in a lot of different venues of, you know, figures don't lie, but liars can figure. So it makes it very interesting because you see the same thing when we're talking about the city budget, when we're talking about other things. So again, when you're looking at 15,300 cases in Florida, what percentage is that? But also remember, Florida just reopened, and now people are starting to swarm into Florida, which means as they come back from Florida, they may be bringing the virus back with them. So we have to be very critical of the numbers and very critical of the reopening of their tourist community and their tourist businesses, because that's where they make their money. They don't make their money anywhere else. They make their money on tourism, which a lot of states do, but Florida is key on making money on tourism. And the mouse is the biggest employer in Florida, and you know that's why he's open. So I just hope that the mouse doesn't cause the spread further.
Well, yeah, you said, but this morning, coincidentally, I was watching some video from Florida because they were talking about Florida on the national news, and they showed the beaches packed. Half the people don't have masks. They showed people in restaurants and bars packed in, sitting close to each other. So again, these figures are, you know, even if they are accurate, it's not the root cause. The root cause is that these people just don't abide by rules. They don't care. You tell them to social distance, you tell them to wear a mask, and they give you one of the fingers, and which one most of the time we all know. And this is the problem. We don't pay attention. If you look at some of these countries that brought it under control, well, they're totalitarian countries. I mean, they do what they told, or they go to the gulag, you know, the work camp. Because if you look at countries like Korea, well, they tell everybody to wear a mask, and they go out, they wear a mask. If they don't, they'll probably get thrown in a work camp somewhere. So this is the problem. The problem is the American people just think they're entitled to do whatever they want. That's their, you know, and our Constitution gives us a lot of freedom, but you also don't have the freedom to jeopardize the public, as we say. We have a right to freedom of speech, but you can't yell fire in a crowded room. That's already been adjudicated. You know, in a court, they said that, yeah. So wear a mask, or wear a daisy, you know, and sunflower, not a daisy, but you know, that's the problem, CJ. The problem is we have people that, and I see it. I went to where was I the other day? Oh, I went over to Home Depot, and I walked in, and half the customers, all the employees were wearing masks, and half the customers weren't. And so you look and you go, oh, well, you know, here we go again. I mean, the first 7 people I saw didn't have masks on. They're pulling sheetrock off and stacking it on their carts and things, and nobody's got masks, and they're wandering around all the aisles with no masks and touching everything. And so, hey, you wonder why we've got problems? Well, all you got to do is go to any store, watch them walk against the arrows, have no mask on, get into fights because somebody tells them to put a mask on, and you know why. You know, one thing they're not very good at is doing something that's a little uncomfortable. So they're going to do it their way, regardless of the consequences.
You know, that's true, and we see it a lot. Believe me, we see it a lot with the fights about masks, and you know, attacks on employees of businesses that saying, you know, I can't serve you if you don't have a mask on, and people get upset. You know, people get upset, especially employees, because they're out there working and they want to be protected. And if you're not going to at least give them the courtesy of wearing a mask, they have a right to be upset, I believe. So,
well, you're right.
On to something new and exciting. The city council meeting is tomorrow. And there's a real interesting thing going on. First off, the mayor is seeking an order to rescind the July continuing appropriation budget for fiscal year 2021, and he's seeking an order for an August continuing appropriation budget. So he's doing exactly as Mary Sahai said, that they were going to get one for July and August. Now, are we going to have a budget for September? Are we going to have a budget hearing in August? What is going to happen? I want to know. I want to know now. I don't want to wait until September. I don't want to wait until August and then find out that, oh no, we're going to go in September. This is pushing it too far down the road. So it's time for a budget to be developed, in my opinion. But
no, you're right. But hey, no, you're right, CJ. I mean, look, we're going to have basically the 112 or whatever you want to call it, and they're going to follow it. And you know what they're doing. I mean, we can at least in my opinion, what they're doing is they're figuring out where they can rob Peter to pay Paul, move money around, misrepresent numbers, and they want to see how much money they can pilfer from the COVID virus federal money that they're going to get, and see if they can use it for other things. And I think you brought up a point. We had a conversation where they're calling in assistance to the police department, but they're moving money from the police department. They're fundamentally.
I was going to bring that up next.
Yeah. So you got the numbers. Go ahead.
There was a transfer request for the fiscal 2020 year-end obligations. The mayor wants to transfer from administrative salaries, $24,777, administrative expenses, $175,000, and police salaries, $280,223, for a grand total of $480, to be transferred to community maintenance expenses, $330,000, and your favorite item, insurance, $150,000.
Yeah, and therein is a great example, CJ. I'm glad you ran over those numbers, because especially the area of salaries, because what they're going to say is we've got this hiring freeze because of the money and the COVID virus, et cetera, and that is the biggest crock of BS the world has ever seen. If BS was bricks, we could build a chimney to the moon and have bricks left over with that, because that's not true. I can go back to the 1980s and 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, when I was the president of the police fire union. I'm sorry. But complaining about not putting men on, because the city does that routinely in all departments to save the salaries and the benefit costs to stick into their budget, which they shouldn't be doing, because we should be getting what we budgeted for so we can get services, especially public safety services. But they've done it for years, and they came up with every excuse in the book. I don't know how many times I went before the council and complained that we were 8 people short, 9 people short, 10 people short. And then they complain about the overtime budget because you use too much of it, because you're going to replace these people who they won't replace. But it's financially beneficial to them to get those salaries, milk it out as long as they can, and then at the end of the year, it becomes free cash. Not only their salaries, but the health care costs that the city would pay for them and their other benefits. So they make a boatload of money at the end of the year at your expense, taxpayers and citizens of Fall River. You don't have as much help at City Hall to collect your bills. You don't have enough police or fire. When the money's in the budget, so there's no excuse. If you cut positions, well, then you'll answer for cutting public safety. But in reality, they have cut public safety for decades by not filling positions immediately. And they'll give you all the BS excuses, all the bullshit. They'll pile it on so high that you got to wear hip boots. They'll tell you, well, we can't do it because we don't have a big enough class. We don't. Bull. They have a Massachusetts Fire Academy. So if you got two people, if 2 people, 3 people retire, you should be expeditiously moving to bring them back on a job. And a polite, also the police. Somewhere, someplace in Massachusetts, there's a mass police academy, I believe. I can't say that with all 100% certainty, but I know there's a mass fire academy. So, and we actually sent people to mass fire academy occasionally. We normally run our own training academy, but look, the bottom line with this is there's not enough police officers right now on the job whose salary was voted upon by the city council. So the money is there to replace them. And it's actually cheaper to replace them because the guys who are retiring are getting the top longevity, the top salary, the top everything. And when you get a new hire, they get less vacation, no longevity, and very little of the benefits that the senior police officers have gotten, or firefighters. So again, this is a really critical issue that our city council is going to totally ignore. They've ignored it for years, and they're going to ignore it again. Our public safety is being diminished for monetary gain. So that's my.
I hear you, and according to statements made to another reporter, the mayor says this money is coming out of the police overtime budget because the courts were closed and there were fewer police officers necessary to go to court, which would come out of the overtime budget. And so and again, we didn't have the Great Feast, but the Great Feast goes into the 2021 budget because we used that money last year for the Great Feast. So this year in the 2021 budget, they should cut that line item out for the Great Feast, and that will cut down the overtime budget a little bit, and that will save some money. But of course, we can't do that because we may want to transfer that money somewhere later on in the year.
Boy, did you hit that one on the head? Because look, it does make sense. The man says, well, because police officers are required to go to court to testify in many cases, and they're there virtually every day. There's some police officer in the courtroom being paid, and they have to be paid for their time, obviously. As do firefighters occasionally, nowhere near as much as police, but police are there all the time. So yeah, you're right. They're not going to spend as much money, but heaven forbid, since that money was already budgeted, that we keep that money in the budget and actually use it to reinforce our police officers on the street. No, we wouldn't do that because that actually would enhance public safety. Instead, we're going to rob it because we're overspending. Remember, Mary Zahadi's got to get her automatic cost of living raise. You got to fund all the pay raises that you gave all your pals and all the automatic cost of living raises. And we're always running on a shoestring. So, City Council, you appropriated that overtime money. And if you're truly a public safety advocate, that's not what you should be looking at, how to rob it and put it somewhere else. You would be saying, well, since we have money freed up because they're not going to court, how about putting a few more on a street?
Well, the mayor said that we have a hiring freeze, so we're not hiring anybody to fill positions.
So all the more reason we need to make sure we get some people on the street.
I agree.
And the hiring freeze is bull. Like I said, there are certain entities that should be. And the hiring freeze is financially beneficial. Let me make something perfectly clear with someone who's been fighting with this, who fought with this city for 24 years about manpower and about filling vacancies and with through hiring freezes and projected layoffs and every other thing. This has got nothing to do with public safety. And if they say that, they're full of crap, and everything to do with money. As we said on our first show 8 years ago, follow the money. This is all about them getting money to pump into their pork barrel, because it's got nothing to do with public safety. Because if it truly did, They would not allow vacancies to go unfilled for months and sometimes nearly an entire year. They would utilize already appropriated overtime money to enhance public safety, not divert it somewhere else. This is absolute political bullshit. It always has been, and it always will be. And the problem in this scenario is the city council. Nobody wants to bring this up. We have a few people that are self-anointed public safety advocates. So I hope they watch this show and ask these questions.
Well, I made a comment yesterday in the Weekend Flush that that the overtime appropriation could potentially hire 1 or 2 more police officers. And I said, it is time for the police department allocations be reviewed and adjusted accordingly. Maybe it's time that the city get all private entities to pay for their own police protection that are for events and special occasions. Bars, clubs, and restaurants must pay for detail coverage. Why not things like religious feasts? I would ask that the city council review the police overtime budget and cut from the budget this same $280,000, as it is extra money that is obviously not needed, although it is claimed to be because of COVID-19 and the lack of police officers going to court. It still seems to be sending mixed messages to people.
Yeah, and you're right, CJ. And but the thing is, as I said, see, that's the very, and it's not really a difficult thing. It's not some nuance that's buried somewhere. This is pretty simple. The city council right now is going to be looking at a budget for the month of August. Whether it's the month of August or the entire year, that money we supposedly have, and they're appropriating it for a specific purpose. So then it becomes a situation of priorities. If we're short of police officers, and we had a shooting at South Park, Kennedy Park. Well, I'm dating myself going to South Park, but Kennedy Park, it still will always be South Park to me. My grandmother and grandpa live right across the street from it. But the thing is that money is appropriated for a specific purpose. So why not use it to enhance public safety? When we have a situation where we have shootings, and then there's another alleged heinous crime that happened over the weekend. It's all over Facebook. We can't get corroborative evidence on that, so we're not going to cover the details. But anybody that goes on Facebook, which is everybody, has read about it. But look, we're the #1 city in crime in the state of Massachusetts, and I don't know where we stand New England-wise this year, but last year we were #2 in New England. That's from Maine to Connecticut. So guess what? You think that if we have extra money in the overtime budget, we would try to beef up our police presence? No, we're going to take the money out of the budget and use it somewhere else. So let's face it, this is something that's the council's fault. I want to see a councilor say, no, Mr. Mayor, we budgeted this money for the police. Find a way to use the money. And I can understand him not wanting to hire somebody right now because they got to pay the health care and their portion of the health care, but put somebody on overtime. That was a choice they made many years ago. Get some police officers to come in, but enhance our police presence. You're saying you're a public safety advocate and you're going to allow public safety money to be diverted. Why not reinvest that? The overtime budget isn't specific. It's an overtime budget. It doesn't say this money can only be used to pay police officers to go to court. It's for overtime for police officers. So why can't we use that money to put a couple of more cops on the street to protect us and protect each other? I don't know. It's pretty simple to me, CJ.
I don't see a reason why not. It sounds pretty logical to me. But wait a minute. There it is. It's logical.
Yeah, and also they can't take their money to divert to all the jobs that shouldn't be there. All the pork barrel jobs. We got to pay the CFOs and the CFOs and the assistants and the special assistants. And how long did it take them to fill a special assistant's job? Did that go unfilled for 6 or 7 or 8 months?
No, well, not that I know of, but right now it's unfilled because the special assistant Sarah LaPointe resigned and allegedly went to work for WSAR. So that's a whole nother story.
Somebody else has already been named. There's a name being bandied around because I've heard it already, and it may even be on the job, unbeknownst to us.
Well, the only person, and I read it once on the show, the only person I have received any communication from regarding the media outlet was Evie Paridi. She said that there's forgive the hiccup, if you remember, I read that. And so it makes for an interesting time when you see other people filling in positions. So, but what can you do about it? Nothing much. But again, when we're also looking at where this money's going to, it's going to DCM. Now they're transferring it to DCM. Where's DCM's money? What happened to it? And they're transferring $150,000 to insurance. Wait a minute. You're supposed to have a fully funded insurance account, are you not?
Yes, we are.
But again, because we're tying up too much money, we transfer the money around from other places. That's how they're funding the insurance in the city. They're funding it from other departments. They're not funding it the way they're supposed to fund it. And this is what Mary Sahadi's doing. So that come the end of the year, they transfer the money from other departments, like the police department, like administrative salaries, like administrative expenses, and says, okay, we need another $150,000 for insurance. Here it goes. That's where it's coming from because we didn't budget that accordingly.
You're right.
No, we're doing everything right. I can see this.
And by the way, do you have the timer in the corner of your
screen? Yes, I do.
Okay, so good. Now we know where we are. But you're right. But let's see if the city council allows Mary Sahadi to lie about the cost of health care again. Let's see if anybody allows her to say it's 8% or it's double figures and not say it's 5.7%. If I was a city councilor, I would bring my PowerPoint presentation and I would play the excerpt from the PEC meeting where she was sitting in the room and didn't say a word when the mayor and her were told it's 5.7%, not 8%. Not double figures, it's 5.7%, and we are running under budget. And by the way, when Mary Sahadi said she wasn't aware that we're paying less than we did 10 years ago, she has to be aware because she's the CFO. And I requested those numbers from the city going 10 years back. I have all the numbers going 20 years back. But the reality is she is aware of that. That's again another half truth. I wasn't there. She wasn't physically part of the healthcare meetings. She wasn't attending IAC or PEC meetings 10 years ago, but she was still part of it. But she is the CFO today, and she's responsible to know all the numbers, including what the numbers were before, especially when it was a request made by me for those numbers.
Well, we're out of time again, believe it or not. So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for inviting us into your home. Oh, I greatly appreciate it. Please continue to watch. Send us your comments and questions. And remember, stay safe and stay angry.
And be a